My name is Avery Lynn, though on paper, I often go by A.L. Harrow, the name stitched into the trust that owns the company my family tried to destroy me in. They thought I was just another mid-level exec, barely hanging on in a big world. What they didn't realize. I was the majority shareholder of Verdantia Labs, a $3.2 billion biotech firm headquartered in downtown Chicago. And they tried to erase me. In public. With forged documents. And a smile, but let's rewind. I was never the favorite. That was Chloe, my younger sister. The polished one. The Ivy League socialite with perfect posture and a LinkedIn page that looked like it had been curated by Vogue. Chloe didn't just walk into rooms, she floated in, always flanked by admirers and our parents' pride. Me? I was the odd one. Out. Quiet. Obsessed with science. The scholarship kid who took classes at Georgia Tech by day and coded medical databases at night just to afford rent. Your sister's in PR now, my mom used to say to friends, as if public relations was royalty. Avery's doing something technical, I think. Experiments. She never asked. Never cared, and I learned quickly, when your family underestimates you, the smartest thing you can do is let them. Because there's nothing more dangerous than the child they didn't see coming. After graduation, I worked in silence. While Chloe took wine-tasting sabbaticals in Napa and bragged about client brunches in Manhattan, I took a low-level position at a startup lab no one had heard of. Verdantia. Back then, we had 3 floors and 1 coffee machine that only worked on Tuesdays. I ran diagnostics, scrubbed data, ran experiments at 3 a.m. when no one else would. I wasn't interested in titles, I was watching, learning. Understanding where the company bled, and where it could grow. By the time I turned 28, I'd already launched and exited 2 stealth startups, both in health tech, both profitable, and neither linked directly to my name. I built a private equity firm behind layers of trust structures, bought out Verdantia's struggling competitors one by one, and slowly started acquiring shares of the company I once mopped floors in, all without a single headline. Why the secrecy? Because I knew what money did to people. I knew what it would do to them. My parents adored Chloe's stability. Her job at a media agency made sense to them. They could explain it at dinners. Chloe handles branding for big names, my father would beam. She's going places. When I mentioned launching my second startup, my mother actually said, "That's nice, honey. But you should really talk to Chloe, she knows how to network. You need help getting into real business." So I let them believe I needed help. I played the struggling sister role so well, I could have won an Emmy. Meanwhile, I was quietly building a holding company under the name Harrow Ventures, and by 31, I owned 61% of Verdantia Labs. Fully voting shares. Controlling interest, not. Even the board knew, and then they promoted me, Chief Innovation Officer. It looked like a break. It was actually checkmate. When Chloe found out, she laughed. Literally. Well, I guess being a nerd finally pays off. Dad clapped me on the back like I was a kid who passed her driving test. Just don't mess it up, alright? I smiled. Nodded. And watched, because here's what they didn't know, I controlled their salaries. I controlled the board. I had the power to erase their careers with a single email, but I didn't. Not yet. Because revenge, real revenge, the kind you taste in your throat when they finally beg you for mercy, takes time. Precision. Restraint. They thought they were coming to my rescue. In truth, they were about to walk straight into the trap I'd been building for 10 years, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. For a while, I played along. I let Chloe brag at family dinners. Let her make little jokes about me finally making something of myself. I let her talk over me when I mentioned a biotech deal Verdantia was exploring. "Sorry, Avery, this isn't a lab presentation," she'd chirp. And I'd smile, let her shine, because that's what the stage is for. Bait. The first real move came 3 weeks into my new role. Chloe sent me a calendar invite. Lunch? Just the 2 of us, 2 hearts. I went. She picked a glassy rooftop spot overlooking the river. Smiled like a fox. "Listen," she began, sipping something overpriced. "I know this new position is a huge deal for you. But C-suite's a different game. You'll need help navigating it." I kept my tone even. "Help from you? Come on," she cooed. "You've always been brilliant, just not exactly polished. There's a reason people like me are brought in to represent companies. Image matters. You still write your own press statements?" "Every word," I said, cute. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a small velvet folder. "This is a proposed media strategy," she said sweetly. "Just something I drew up. To make sure you don't, look like you lucked into the job." The implication was clear. I wasn't deserving. I was lucky. And Chloe was here to be the generous hand that saved me from myself. I took the folder, smiled, and said, "Thanks." I didn't open it. Not there. Instead, I slid it across my desk that night while sipping black coffee and cross-referencing It's talking points with our internal data. It wasn't strategy. It was sabotage. Chloe had included projections that were flat out wrong, charts that misrepresented our R&D pipeline, and a suggested quote for me to give the press that falsely implied a failed vaccine prototype had been mine. Subtle but deadly to anyone who didn't know the truth. Still, I said nothing. Because that was just her testing the water. The next month, it escalated. I noticed HR flagging anonymous tips, claims about my resume, allegations of fake degrees, padding credentials, inflated job titles. All unfounded. All false. Point 1. Email even implied I was only promoted due to diversity metrics. I confronted HR directly. They were embarrassed but firm. We have to log and follow up on every complaint. Of course, I said, already compiling a private list of every interaction. That week, Chloe dropped by Verdantia unannounced, claiming she was doing research for a feature piece. She was seen in the break room, casually chatting with department heads, fishing for gossip, concerned about her sister's stress levels. Smiling, listening, planting seeds. I watched her from the upper glass office. Like a queen surveying a chessboard, she wasn't here for research, she was here to scout my weaknesses. And then came the dossier, delivered in a sleek black envelope, addressed to the board of directors, postmarked anonymously but watermarked with a PR firm Chloe used regularly. Inside, forged bank statements, falsified internal memos, a completely fabricated timeline alleging I'd funneled Verdantia money into offshore accounts and manipulated stock options for personal gain. It was a full-blown character assassination, and she thought she'd won. At dinner that weekend, Chloe couldn't contain herself. I heard Verdantia's board is reviewing some troubling developments, she said innocently, cutting into her seared scallops. Nothing serious, of course. But still, rough time for you to be under scrutiny, huh? Mom looked alarmed. Dad cleared his throat. No one looked at me. I sipped my wine. Is that so? I asked quietly. Oh, she added, smiling, and just a heads up? They've asked for my professional insight. You know, should there be any reputation management needed. It was all I could do not to laugh. She thought she was stepping in as my savior again. She didn't realize she was walking straight into a boardroom I owned. The moment I saw the envelope, I knew the endgame had begun. It was hand-delivered to each board member, thick with legal jargon and red-stamped, urgent, conflict of interest. I didn't even need to open it. I knew what it was, the dossier. Chloe crafted, polished, deadly, and laced with lies convincing enough to warrant an emergency board meeting. They called it for Friday, 9 a.m. sharp. I wasn't invited, not officially, anyway. My assistant, Naima, placed the memo on my desk with careful hands. They're framing this as a closed review session. No external parties. She paused. They don't know. You're the majority owner, do they? I leaned back in my chair, watching the Chicago skyline. No, I said, my voice flat. Not yet. For the rest of the week, I prepared. I stayed late. Ran audit trails. Pulled digital logs. Contacted legal. Not once did I speak Chloe's name. She wasn't worth it yet, but I made sure every document she'd forged was met with 3 that disproved it. And more importantly, I sent the board a confidential memo Thursday night, under Harrow Ventures' legal signature, attendance required for shareholder update. You'll want to be there. A.L. Harrow. Friday morning, I arrived at 7 a.m. Not to work. To watch the show. From my office above the executive conference wing, I could see the glass foyer. At 8:42 a.m., Chloe strutted into the building in a white power suit, lips glossed, hair flawless. She was flanked by our parents, Dad in his navy blazer, Mom practically vibrating with premature pride. They thought they were here for a coronation. They didn't realize they were walking into a reckoning. At 8:55, Naima buzzed in. All board members seated. Chloe's been given a temporary badge. They're waiting to begin. I stood, smoothed my jacket, and grabbed the thin black folder sitting at the corner of my desk. Inside, ownership transfer documents, audio recordings, 1 letter from the SEC, dated last weekend, a single-page summary titled, Operational Threats, Internal Sabotage. At 9 o'clock on the dot, I opened the door to the boardroom. The timing was deliberate. Marcus Reed, our board chair, was mid-sentence, looking grim. These allegations against Ms. Lynn raise serious questions about. Sorry I'm late, I said brightly, stepping in. All heads turned. Chloe's expression snapped from smug to confused. Dad blinked. Mom froze mid-smile. Avery, Chloe said sharply, this is a closed meeting. I know, I replied, walking to the head of the table. That's why I'm here. She scoffed. You don't get to, actually, I interrupted, placing the folder down. I do. I looked directly at Marcus. This meeting concerns Verdantia's leadership and direction. As the company's majority owner, I'm required to be here. And you all are required to listen. Dead silence. Chloe laughed once. It cracked. Excuse me? This is a publicly traded company. You don't own anything. I nodded to Naima, who stepped in and began distributing neatly labeled packets. To each board member, correction, I said, not breaking eye contact. Verdantia was publicly traded. 2 months ago, Harrow Ventures completed a full acquisition. You'll find the SEC confirmation in Section 3. Marcus flipped to the 3rd page. His face paled. Chloe reached across the table and grabbed a copy. As she scanned it, I saw her pupil's contract. Her lips parted slightly. You're Harrow, she whispered. I smiled. Didn't think your sister was capable of anything beyond microscopes and pipettes, huh? She didn't answer. Couldn't, but I wasn't done. Before we address the absurd allegations in your folder, I said, tapping the fake dossier she'd sent, I'd like to play something. Naima pressed a button on the tablet. Audio crackled to life. Chloe's voice filled the room. All we need is doubt. Doesn't have to be true, just enough to make them stall her out. Buy me time to get on the board. She won't even see it coming. The clip ended. I let the silence stretch, taken during your little lunch with our comms VP. He wore a wire, by the way. Her mouth moved, but no words came. You planted a fake scandal. Fabricated financial statements. And then, you tried to position yourself as the PR solution to a fire you started. I folded my arms. You didn't just attack me. You endangered this company. You endangered shareholders. You endangered our credibility with the FDA. That was the true kill shot. The board flinched at FDA. They knew what that meant. Lawsuits, regulation freezes, public relations disasters, and Chloe finally realized she wasn't just losing. She was finished. I tilted my head. And so your solution was to forge financial records and try to get me indicted? I thought I could fix it. PR always spins things. This isn't a scandal, Chloe. This is a damn felony. Her voice cracked. I'm your sister. No, I said coldly. You're my lesson. I turned to security, who had arrived quietly at the door. Escort Ms. Lin and my parents out. Make sure they sign the no-contact orders. And no cameras. I don't want their tears polluting the exit footage. As they were let out, Chloe in stunned silence, my parents blinking like they'd woken from a dream, I sat back down. The room was dead quiet. Marcus finally broke it. Well, he said slowly. That was a hell of a shareholder update. I smiled. Welcome to the new Verdantia. Still gripping the folder she had handed the board with so much confidence just days earlier, the one filled with her carefully forged lies, only now, every face around the table was staring at her like she'd just vomited on their shoes. I was trying to protect the company, she stammered finally. Avery's not qualified. She's always been unstable. Obsessive. You've all seen her. I raised an eyebrow. Obsessive is one word. The FDA prefers meticulously compliant. So does our patent counsel, and the SEC, and every analyst covering US. I let that settle. Then I opened my own folder and slid a single document across to Marcus Reed, our board chair. This, I said, my voice cold and sharp as glass, is the signed acquisition contract for Biotenix Labs. I closed that deal. At 29, without media coverage, without investor interference, and without family name dropping at cocktail parties. I turned to Chloe. Remind me again, what exactly were you doing at 29? Oh right. Trying to launch a podcast that flopped. In 3 weeks. Excuse me, she hissed, color rushing back to her face. That's not relevant, no, but this is. I snapped my fingers. Naima projected a second document onto the big screen. Chloe's falsified dossier. On one side, Chloe's forged data, revenue manipulation, insider trading, financial misconduct. On the other side, my audit, actual financial statements, IP filings, cross-reference timestamps. The discrepancies were glaring. Let's start with the fake Cayman account, I said. The one you claimed I used to embezzle from Verdantia. Small problem, it belongs to a corporate client we partnered with 2 quarters ago. And the bank flagged your statements as forgeries within minutes. I turned to Marcus. We've already contacted legal. You'll find a cease and desist letter, a draft criminal complaint, and an SEC whistleblower report prepared for review. Chloe's chair creaked as she shifted. Dad cleared his throat, but said nothing. Mom opened her mouth, then shut it. I looked at them both. Not going to speak up now? You were so vocal in the group chat last week. I tossed my phone on the table, screen unlocked. Open to the thread titled, Lin Family, Private. The last few messages. Dad, let's be real. Avery always struggled socially. She's not leadership material. Mom, maybe Chloe should take over. She has the instincts. Avery's just book smart. Gasps around the table. I turned to them, my smile brittle. You weren't just rooting for her. You were actively hoping I'd fail. And the only reason you're quiet now is because you're watching the wrong horse drown. Mom's lip trembled. Chloe shot to her feet. You can't do this. You're destroying your own family. I stood, too. Calm. Controlled. Brutal. No, Chloe. You did that. When you tried to bury me with forged evidence. When you lied to a federal board. When you weaponized Mom and Dad's approval like a damn throne. Chloe lunged across the table, grabbing for the documents. Marcus blocked her with one hand. Sit down, he snapped. First time I'd ever heard him raise his voice, she sank back into her chair, face burning. I turned to the board, effective immediately. I request that Chloe Lynn be permanently banned from all Verdantia properties, subsidiaries, and strategic affiliates. Attempted defamation, corporate sabotage, and conspiracy to commit fraud, all documented. All submitted. Marcus nodded grimly. We'll draft the order today. I wasn't done. I looked at my parents. You raised her like a queen. Taught her how to smile and destroy with the same hand. Taught me I'd never be enough unless I became her. So I did what I had to. I became something you couldn't ignore. I built something you couldn't control. Dad swallowed hard. I just wanted to help you both succeed, he muttered weakly. No, I said, my voice cutting clean through the air. You wanted her to succeed. I was just the insurance policy. The backup. Then, slowly, deliberately, I pulled a small envelope from my pocket. This, I said, placing it in front of them, was the trust one opened for your retirement. Back when I still thought you might care about me for me. It's been closed. Permanently. Mom gasped. Avery, I held up a hand. You came here today to watch me fall. I invited you so you could watch yourselves fail. Chloe stood again. Voice trembling now. I made a mistake. Okay? I was scared. You were finally ahead of me and I didn't know how to deal with it. 3 months later, Naima buzzed into my office. There's someone here to see you, she said carefully. She didn't make an appointment. Said it's personal. I knew who it was before she said the name. Chloe. I nodded once. Send her in. The woman who stepped through my office doors barely resembled the Chloe I remembered. Gone was the perfect blowout, the tailored power suits, the trademark smirk. She wore simple slacks, no jewelry, no designer heels, just a plain blouse and a worn tote bag. Her eyes were tired. Her voice, soft. I'm not here to ask for anything, she said quickly, raising her hands. Just to say something. She placed a manila envelope on my desk. These are copies of everything I still had. Names, contacts, strategy memos. From when I tried to destroy you. I figured, if I was ever going to start over, I should leave the rot behind. I didn't touch the envelope. Just studied her face. Why now? I asked. She swallowed hard. Because everything fell apart, she said. The agency blacklisted me. My name's toxic. I burned every bridge trying to win a game that only existed in my head. She looked up, finally meeting my eyes. You built something real. I mocked it. Tried to take it. And when I lost, it felt like the first time I'd ever really seen you. There was no trembling lip. No tears, just honesty. It didn't move me. But it didn't disgust me either. I'm applying for internships, she added. Starting at the bottom. Again. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know. I'm not running anymore. She turned to go. Chloe, I said quietly. She stopped. Send me your resume. In a year. She blinked. What? If you're still standing. If you've done the work, without shortcuts, without anyone else's credit, then maybe we'll talk. I leaned back in my chair, but not in PR. Not in management. Not in any office with a view. She nodded slowly, and for the first time in our lives, I saw something I never expected on her face. Respect. She walked out without another word. 6 months later, Verdantia Labs is thriving. Our cancer detection platform just entered phase 3 trials. We're hiring across 3 continents. And I sit in a corner office they once said I'd never earn, looking out over the skyline I used to dream about when I was broke, alone, and underestimated. Mom sends the occasional holiday card now. Dad leaves voice messages when old friends ask about the CEO daughter. I keep them all. I just don't reply, because I don't need applause. I don't need forgiveness, and I sure as hell don't need to prove anything anymore. Sometimes, revenge isn't loud. It doesn't need screaming matches or public breakdowns. Sometimes, it looks like a quiet office. A locked drawer of sealed evidence. And a sister, walking away, finally realizing what you always knew, that you never needed to win their game. You just needed to build your own table. And own the damn building it sits in.